Sound region, which we had the coldest, wettest March on record. And so that is why my arthritic pain has soared. I thought I would be here long enough to have this hot, dry weather aid me, but it is not God's will. I figure that at my age, I'm 77, that the Lord is now proving to me that the reality within Orthodoxy of the value of suffering. So here I am. I want to just share a little bit about my past to make it clearer as to who I am and is it working?
Yeah, it's working. It's just on me turn it on.
Oh.
Go ahead, Paul.
Is that better? Can everybody hear me? Nobody? People in the back row can't hear me.
Yeah, if you can't hear, just go like this.
Hello? Is this better?
Yeah.
That's better. Okay. Okay, so. First of all, I was raised Lutheran, Wisconsin Synod, the most conservative of the Lutherans at the time. My mother was a church organist. My dad was a golf pro. My brother and I always went to church whether we wanted to or not because my mother was the boss. My dad was on the golf course every Sunday morning, and whenever I would complain to him about why do we have to go to church when you're on the golf course, his response was, well, I worship God on the golf course. And I didn't buy that, but at that moment I thought maybe I should be a golf pro, so I wouldn't have to go to church. But over the years, my parents were really wonderful to me and my brother. They loved us. They encouraged us. I never in my younger years did I feel that I was limited on what I could do that would maybe make my parents less proud, because my dad told me once, son, whatever you choose to do with your life, if it makes you happy, that's fine with us. I was born in Spokane. My dad was a golf pro at Downriver Country Club. Mother John and Sherry know about that place. One of the best golf courses in Spokane. My first job was to tend to the Coke machine. Back then they were bottled in glass and they were put in cold water. So I would have to fill those, and people would put their coin in, probably 5 cents, who knows, back then. And my brother and I, because we could play golf free, we played about 36 holes of golf every day during the summertime. But my dad was one of these, he was really funny, had a great sense of humor, and so I was always a little embarrassed when we were out with my dad, because he brought a lot of attention to the family, which I didn't want at the time. And then when I turned 50, I remember looking into a mirror and thinking, oh my gosh, I have turned into dad. So I inherited my mother's taste in music and interior design, because she was both an organist, pianist, classical, a teacher. She taught piano and organ. And but I guess, and I look in God's divine providence that God was preparing me for what I am doing now by the kind of parents that I had. And when I first, I'm a recovering psychologist. It's a lifelong process. And I remember when I decided to become an Orthodox monk. I should tell you a little bit about that.
Sure.
You want me to? Okay.
Yes.
Well, when I was in college in Oregon, the Willamette Valley of Oregon, at the beginning of my senior year, I met with one of the professors to plan what graduate school I would go to. And she, when she heard that I wanted to teach English literature, she said, David, there is such a glut on the market out there that you will never get a job teaching in a college. Too many people will be vying for the same job. Is there any other topic you're interested in? And I said, well, I love history. And she said, same thing. There's so many people going to graduate school to become, for history. You'll never get a job, not unless you want to teach in some little college, some little community college or high school. I had grandiose ideas because my image of being a professor was that I would live in the country and I would be a professor at a small college, and I would have a small horse ranch. So I would come home in my sports car in the afternoon from the college, and I would get on my favorite horse and I'd gallop around. That was my image. And I had that image because one of my favorite professors was a woman who had just that image. She literally had a horse ranch. And sometimes when we would have classes there, and I would drive in my old 58 Volvo, and I'd see her coming out with her, she looked like British. She had the British chaps and the whole works. And she'd come out, and she always, and then her home was just filled with books and kind of a classical Edwardian interior, and that's what I wanted. Well, when the professor said, you're not going to get a position in anything like that, teaching either college literature or history. So she said, why don't you do this? She said, is there any other subject that you're interested in? And I said, well, I liked my psychology classes. Bingo, she says. There's plenty of room out there for more psychologists. She said, look at our society. And she said, and if you're good at it, you'll be able to get a job teaching psychology somewhere. So do that. So what I ended up doing is I applied and I went to UC Berkeley, doctoral program in psychology. And I remember my, well, first of all, I will tell you that Berkeley essentially tried to destroy me, as most universities do with young people today.
What year was this?
1840.
No wonder you wanted a horse.
Yeah. So it was in the 70s, early 70s. But anyway, so almost overnight, Berkeley started to radicalize me. And so back in the late 60s, early 70s, when there's a lot of unrest on the campus, well, a lot of it was me. I was right out there, we had ROTC on the campus, and I would have, yell at them, and I had, nasty signs, and I, up against the police. I got tear gassed a number of times. Have any of you heard of Father James Bernstein by chance? Okay, well, he was one of the founders, the co-founder of Jews for Jesus. And Father James used to do a campus ministry on UC campus and on Sproul Plaza, coming into the campus on Sproul Plaza, there was this huge fountain. And I remember one time he was in the fountain baptizing people. And I went up to him and mocked him. I finally admitted a few years ago, because he's in the Seattle area and he and I are good friends, and I finally let him know that that came that close to pushing him into the fountain. But looking at some of the Jews, or the jocks for Jesus that were with him, I figured I might not live through that. So I didn't. But that was the only reason why I didn't. And finally, after my graduate school, I went to Portland, Oregon, and I became part of a psychology clinic, and I was also teaching in a small college. And I was initially very happy, making good money, and I loved Portland at the time. Now stay away. It's, you know, it used to be considered the crown jewel of the West Coast, and now, you know, it's a broken necklace or something. I mean, it's just totally gone. All my favorite bronze